Alright, so welcome back to Jim Bob's Garden. Today what we're going to do is we're going to trim up some blueberries and then use the cuttings to try and propagate some new blueberry bushes. So what we're looking for is basically nice solid growth, but preferably last year's growth. Alright, and then I'm also going to do some trimming on these to hopefully trim them back so they grow the way I want. Get them up off the ground a little bit. So I'm going to take these and we're going to take some of these back here. And then just going to try those right there. I'll try that one. We'll do that one. Alright, so got me some cuttings, and I'll show you how I go about sticking them in the ground and hopefully getting them to grow. Alright, so what we're looking for here is the semi-rigid branches. You don't want real floppy branches. You want stuff that's a little bit more solid, from what I understand, and preferably last year's growth. So what we're going to do is I'm going to trim some of these down, and we're just going to take them down to basically the stem. Right there, that was probably a little small, but we're going to give it a shot. Alright. And then we want them about 3 inches long. But you want a couple of nodules where the leaves used to come out to be on it. And then what we're going to do is take a knife and we're just going to scrape a little bit off the bottom. You're basically just trying to get a spot through the bark where hopefully the roots will come out. Now I take a toothpick, punch a little hole in the dirt, take my cutting, dip it in the rooting compound, stick it in there, pinch it down. Alright, simple process. Like I said, we want about 3 inches. So I'm going to cut this one right about there. And then what we're going to do now on these here that have got the leaves on them, what you can do is just grab the top and then slide your fingers down, pull the leaves off that way. And once again, we're going to take and scrape just a little bit at the bottom. Basically just get through the bark. Dip it in rooting hormone. Set myself up a little hole and then stick it down in there. Now you don't want it to go all the way to the bottom. The roots will go downward. So you're just looking to get it like about halfway through the dirt. Now last year it seemed like the pots with the bigger amount of dirt did a lot better. So we're going to go with that this year. I did do this last year. I did 24 blueberry cuttings. Out of the 24, I think I got, let's see, 8, 9, 2, so I got 10 or 12. So I got about 50% propagation on them. But if you think about it, every blueberry plant that I got basically saved me 15 bucks. So even if I only got 10 of them, that's 150 bucks to save me. All right, so again, we're just going to strip it down, take a knife, score the bottom. Dip it in rooting compound and stick it in the dirt. The only reason I make the hole first with the dirt is hopefully to keep the rooting compound on the sapling. Now you get to this one. This one's a little longer, so I'm going to cut it. And should we cut it in 3? We'll just do 2. We'll do 2. All right. Cut it in 2. Strip the leaves. You don't want a lot of leaves apparently because the plant will end up trying to send most of the energy for growth to the leaves rather than to creating roots. All right. Dip it. Dig a little hole. Now this dirt that I got is essentially, well, what it is just potting soil mixed with garden dirt. There's a lot of different recipes people talk about. This seemed to work pretty well for me last year, so I'm going to stick with what I know. But a lot of people talking about using vermiculite, perlite, and peat moss or coconut coir, just whatever you feel is good. Like I said, I had about 50% come back to me last year. If I do that well again this year, I'll be happy. I'm not trying to be a farmer. I'm not trying to do this as a profession. I'm not trying to sell people my my plants. What I'm actually trying to do is grow more plants, so I'll have more plants around the yard. Now, the best time to do this, from everything I can see, is after they've fruited out. And you can see I've still got a few fruits on them, but 90% of the fruit has basically come and gone already. So that's why I'm doing it now. But apparently the best time is right after they've fruited. And we've had a lot of rain here in the past couple weeks. So I figured now would be a good time to do it while they're nice and juicy from all the rain they've soaked up. This is Florida, so you never know when we're going to get rain again. So I want to make sure that I get some of these in some dirt, get them ready to rock before we get back into another dry spell, if we get one. I mean, we've had a ton of rain. We were so dry for so long, and now it's rained for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. And the first time this year, I've actually had to drain water out of my pool. I was actually putting it in all the way up until now. We've been pretty much dealing with a drought. We've had fires and everything else. So hopefully that's all done now. You just put them all in. Now, I would pack the dirt around them, and I don't get the dirt too wet until afterwards. I know a lot of people do that slightly different. But I'll go ahead and moisten them up once I get it all planted up. And this year I'm just going to do the 12. Now, once you get this done and you get your however many you want to plant planted, you want to put them in some type of a moist environment. So what I'm going to do is I've got a tote, basically a plastic container. It's got a see-through or clear lid. And I'm going to take that tote and I'm going to keep them in there in somewhat shaded area. And keep them moist that way. I open it up, once or twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, just so it gets some air in there. But it keeps lots of moisture on them. You want them to stay moist for the first couple of weeks until they start really rooting out. And it's going to take probably until next year before these actually come up and grow right. Like this past year, I kept them there until pretty much the spring, or late winter, early spring, and then I put them out. And so far they're growing all right. I've had a couple died afterwards, but that was because of the drought, I believe, more so than anything that we did wrong. Of course, that's just my opinion, but we really had a lot of drought here recently. So now, last year I did not do the rooting hormone, and I only got 50%. So I'm hoping this rooting hormone will do better this year for me, and we'll get closer to 100%. But hey, if I get 1, I'll be extremely pleased. This is all stuff I was going to trim back anyway. So, I mean, it didn't hurt me any, either way. Lost my train of thought. And I might get some extra blueberry bushes out of it. I'm going to tell you that blueberry bushes can put out a lot, but they usually don't until they get pretty well grown up. And right now, all mine are really small, so I'm getting just a few blueberries. And I like blueberries, so I want to have more. So hopefully this will help us get a few more. And once again, because I'm not trying to sell these and I'm not trying to do this commercially, really doesn't matter what type of blueberries I have other than for record keeping purposes. So I don't really worry too much about that. But if you're going to try and sell them, you want to mark them and have a good idea of what blueberry is what. Now, like I said, all of mine that I have bought and planted were some sort of rabbit eye blueberry, because that's what usually works down here. But there are a lot of different varieties of blueberries. All right, so let me go ahead and water these in, and I'll show you what I do with them. All right, so so once I get them all watered in and everything, I'm going to put them up inside of this little container I got here. And basically the nice thing about this is it keeps them nice and moist, which is something that anytime you're going to try and root out a tree or a shrub, that's usually a good way to go about it from everything I've read. And it did work in this actual container last year. This year, I've also got some other things like my strawberry experiments, which, let me show you that real quick. For those of you who are curious about my K-cup strawberries, nice little strawberry plant growing. So I'll get you a little more information on that as time goes on. And then I'll come out here and I'll open this up during the day a little bit, let it get a little bit of air in, and then water it as need be. But it keeps it sealed up, and it makes a nice coffee table too for when I'm sitting out here by the pool. All right, so that's how I do my blueberries. That's how we go about propagating them here. There is another method using seed. I don't know how successful it is. Probably next year, if I get more blueberries, we'll give that a shot. So thanks once again for stopping by. Like, subscribe, and let me know what you think.